I tried to talk to imams and explain to them that maybe it's not Muhammad at all. Maybe it's a terrorist who abused parts of the Quran and the religion, Islam. But that didn't move anyone to think like that about the drawing. The interpretation that it's Muhammad stimulates hatred much better.
Viel besser den Hass.
And lots of religions need hatred in order to unite their followers. You could use love, but hatred is good too.
The Danish city of Aarhus. On the 13th of September 2005, the local paper Jyllands-Posten published 12 caricatures. Their subject, the Prophet Muhammad. The publication of these caricatures had one simple reason. A Danish author who wanted to address the Quran in a satirical manner couldn't find illustrators for his project. As a result, the paper Jyllands-Posten held a competition. Without being in any way concerned, Kurt Vestergaard submitted his now famous contribution. At first, there were merely a few peaceful protests, but over the coming weeks, the threats became more serious. However, at that time, the issue regarding the caricatures was still a national debate that wasn't really on the international radar.
In Copenhagen gab es eine Demonstration.
There was a demonstration in Copenhagen. 3,000 Muslims took to the streets to demonstrate against these caricatures. But then, 4 or 5 Danish imams went to the Middle East and presented them to religious authorities. And then there were a lot more demonstrations there, and the Danish flag was burned.
An international crisis with a 5-month time fuse. In early 2006, there were riots from Tehran to Jakarta, although there were doubts in the West about just how spontaneous or staged the protests were. But soon it wasn't just flags that were burning. A person was killed during attacks on the Danish embassy in Beirut in February 2006. Kurt Vestergaard's caricature suddenly became the object of official statements made by the European Union, and there were doubts whether he was still safe in his home. Ever since then, Kurt Vestergaard has been under the constant protection of the Danish Security and Intelligence Service, PET.
In 2008 geschah was, also PET hat.
In 2008, the intelligence service were watching 2 men because they'd found proof in their flat that these young men had been planning an attack on our house.
Beweise dafür gefunden haben, dass diese junge Männer, sie hatte einen Angriff.
They'd made sketches.
Auf unserem Haus geplant. Sie haben Zeichnungen gemacht.
Then my wife and I were evacuated.
Evakuiert, meine Frau und ich.
Before Kurt Vestergaard and his wife were able to return, their house was equipped with the latest security technology. But even that wasn't able to prevent what happened on New Year's Eve 2009.
Ich saß hier im Wohnraum und
I was sitting in the living room with my granddaughter Stephanie, who was 5.
5 Jahre alt. Plötzlich
Suddenly,
wurde das
the house was attacked.
Der Mann hat ein Beil und hat
The man had an axe and broke the glass in the door.
in die Tür durchgeschlagen und plötzlich war er hier im
Suddenly, he was in the living room, and I had 2 options. I could stay there and try to fight him, but I was certain I would be killed.
Dann war es ganz sicher, dann wurde ich getötet. Es war so, dass PET uns
The intelligence service had briefed us and explained to us that these terrorists usually only went after their victims, but the victims' families didn't interest them.
Und die Familie interessiert sie nicht. Und ich handelte dann.
So I acted according to what I was told and withdrew to the bathroom, which is also our safe room.
Zum Badezimmer, das auch unser Sicherheitsraum ist. Und davon konnte ich ja die Polizei.
I was able to notify the police from there.
Und greift dann einen Polizisten an.
The terrorist fled and then attacked a police officer.
Geschossen, also
Then he was shot in the knee and in the hand, and then it was over.
Und dann war alles überstanden.
Back in Bangladesh, the situation threatened to escalate. The number of demonstrators increased, as did their willingness to be violent. A frightening situation, but the government in Bangladesh made no efforts to ensure Taslima Nasreen's safety. Quite the contrary, in fact. The author was charged with making inflammatory statements.